A movie pushing 2020 fake election conspiracies has finally been removed from distribution. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Mark Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started. The Salem Media Company, the distribution company behind the conspiracy-filled movie 2000 Mules, has pulled the film from distribution after a defamation lawsuit. What exactly is the story behind this movie?
Okay, so, this was a handy piece of legal work by the lawyers who represented the plaintiff in this case, a guy named Mark Andrews, to bring this defamation case and to win this defamation case. This quote unquote documentary, and Paige, I say documentary with quotes because, well, as we now know, it was riddled with errors and had to be withdrawn from its publisher. But it purported to show that a Georgia man was a quote mule who, in the words of the movie, illegally deposited ballots into drop boxes. Now, while this guy is on screen, there is a voiceover that says, what you are seeing is a crime. These are fraudulent votes. But here's the thing, it wasn't a crime and they weren't fraudulent votes. The guy was lawfully returning ballots from family members, which is legal in Georgia. He was cleared by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. He was cleared by the Georgia State Board of Elections of any wrongdoing. And tragically, his family, and he faced threats of violence because of the movie, harassment, intimidation, and he sued Salem, the distribution, Denise D'Souza, the guy who made this vote, True the Vote, one of these vote suppression organizations that was involved in this nonsense, and he sued them for defamation and for violating the Voting Rights Act, the Ku Klux Klan Act that prohibits voter intimidation. And good for him and good for the lawyers that protect democracy who were part of the legal team that brought this case.
What was the big deal about this 2000 Mules movie? It was filled with election conspiracies made by these far-right figures and groups. How widespread was this film actually shared, and what was the impact of it?
So for many of our viewers, this movie may not have seemed like it made much of a splash, but this was a really big deal among election deniers and big lie advocates and election conspiracy theorists, starting with, by the way, the chief election conspiracist, election denier, and now we can say Paige, convicted felon, Donald Trump. I know it's not for this video, but surrounded by a ever-growing team of people who have been indicted for various things. In that crowd, in that circle, this movie was a really big deal because they rallied around it as proof that in 2020 there was this massive illegal voting, and particularly targeting vote by mail, as we know, is their big target. And the whole thing has collapsed now. So I don't know that, it's one of these things, Paige, where this was a really big movie in the election denier circles. The lawsuit and the results of it are probably less covered now in those circles than they need to be. But a lot of damage was done. A lot of damage was done that unfortunately, you can't undo that damage either to the gentleman who was impacted by it and his family, which is tragic, or to the cause of democracy, because there are undoubtedly thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people who've been lied to. And this movie was part of that lie, but they won't now reconsider their views based on what's happened.
You mentioned that this film has caused a lot of harm and that the people who watched it, who believed in these election conspiracies, aren't going to believe the fact that it was all a lie, right? So why is this lawsuit still important?
Well, so the lawsuit is important, I think, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's important for the individual, right? For the guy who brought the lawsuit, let's not overlook the harm. We talked about this a lot with respect to the individual election officials who sued Rudy Giuliani, right? Who were the subject of his lies. There is a part of the legal system which is really its central purpose, which is to right the wrongs done to individuals. So let's pause on that for a moment. But on a broader sense, it is an important case because it will correct the historical record. And so do I think it's going to, undo the people who believe the 2020 election was the product of fraud? No. Do I think that it's going to cause Donald Trump to reconsider his election denialism? No. Do I think it's going to bring repentance to the Republican Party that continues to peddle election conspiracy lies? No. but it will serve as a marker in the historical record as people who are fair-minded and objective look back on that period. And it is another proof point that what Donald Trump was peddling was untrue. What the right-wing media industrial complex was pushing after 2020 was a lie. And just like the conviction of Donald Trump in the New York case serves as an important marker, it doesn't mean that all of his supporters will agree, but it serves an important historical marker. That is important, and it's important about this movie.
So the movie was distributed for about a year and a half before it was pulled. Salem Media Company has apologized. They are not sharing the movie anymore. They've taken it out of distribution. What about the other players in the lawsuit, like D'Souza and True the Vote?
Right. So those, the lawsuit against them continues. They have not, as of yet, apologized. And I wouldn't hold my breath, and I wouldn't hold my breath that even if they apologize, to get rid of a lawsuit, that you won't, that it will be heartfelt. We have seen Rudy Giuliani at various stages say, well, I'm not going to contest liability. I will stop defaming, but then he goes on to, repeat lies. We've seen Donald Trump, violate gag orders. It is a badge of honor on the right to defy and to remain defiant in the face of evidence. So those lawsuits will continue. Just as, by the way, Paige, the Dominion case settled on the voting machines, but there are other voting machine cases that are continuing against other defendants. So I think, unfortunately, we are going to be in a period of prolonged litigation in which people who were defamed and lied about 2020 will have to continue to be fighting in court. We have not reached, even after January 6th and after all of the damage that did, we have not reached a moment of national reconciling of those lies. In fact, in many quarters, we continue to see those lies get bigger.
I think what's also interesting is that this lawsuit Andrews brought isn't just a defamation lawsuit. It's also a voter intimidation lawsuit, Mark. And this isn't the only intimidation lawsuit that True the Vote is facing.
Yeah, True the Vote got sued. My law firm, in full disclosure, brought the lawsuit, got sued over their voter challenge activity in connection with the 2020 election, 2021 runoff, depending on how you look at it. That case was heard by a trial court. That case is now up on appeal in the 11th Circuit. My team is appealing the trial court's decision there on behalf of plaintiffs in that case. And we'll see where that goes. But you're right. This is not the only case of its type or only case involving these kinds of allegations that is made against True the Vote. And unfortunately, Paige, when you look to 2024. And this is something Democracy Docket has reported extensively at. And I hope everyone, if you're not currently a subscriber to Democracy Docket, you become a subscriber now. There are links below to either become a subscriber to the Freeze newsletter, or you can become a paid member. But Paige, this is something Democracy Docket has covered extensively, the explosion, frankly, of this kind of activity in 2024.
Democracy Docket has covered the topic of voter intimidation extensively in states like Georgia, Arizona, among others. We've done profiles about the groups who are facilitating these activities just to really try to draw back the curtain and say that there is a nationwide movement to intimidate voters, to purge voters, to keep eligible, lawful voters from casting their ballots in 2024. We'll have those articles linked in the description of this video below, and you can also find them on the website. But Mark, we talk about it all the time, that voter intimidation is a big problem. What would you say to someone who maybe has never encountered the idea of voter intimidation before? Just exactly how big of an issue is it for elections this fall?
Yeah. So look, I just wrote a piece on Democracy Docket saying that Donald Trump is plotting his next crime. And, if you think about it, in 2016, he's now been convicted of election interference in the Stormy Daniels case. That was an election interference case. He engaged in that behavior, the jury found, in order to influence and win the 2016 election. We know what he and the people around him have been accused of doing, the criminal acts they've been accused of doing in connection with the 2020 election. There have been people convicted of, lots of people, scores of people convicted of in connection with the January 6th insurrection. And we know that already they are plotting for 2024. So we need to be prepared that there will be voter intimidation, voter harassment, and efforts to destabilize and undermine the confidence in the vote counting and certification process. We know this because this is the history of Donald Trump, and this movement is getting bolder. It is not retreating. It is playing offense, and the Republican Party has completely capitulated to it. Right. So the reason why I am worried about there being more voter intimidation in 2024 is that Republicans have shown that they are willing to engage in this kind of behavior, and rather than recoil from it, Paige, they are doubling down on it. Right, the Republican Party is more committed to it than ever before, and so one of the reasons why I bring litigation with my law firm is to try to fight this. But the reason why Democracy Docket exists is to shine a light on what is happening to democracy in courts. And the courts are an imperfect way of dealing with these acts of intimidation. They are an imperfect way of dealing with a Republican Party and their allies that have lost any commitment to free and fair elections and to democracy. But as we've seen in this case, Paige, though it took a long time, and though the case continues with respect to others, there is some measure of justice that has been brought through the courts. So, I'd ask everyone to not only subscribe to Democracy Docket, but believe that the courts do remain a vital part of protecting democracy in 2024. Thank you all for watching Democracy Docket. Find out more about the lawsuits mentioned and subscribe to our free daily and weekly newsletters in the description of this video.